Welcome to Reminiscences. Our guest today is Professor Gambo Laraba Abdullahi, who is a professor of Analytical Chemistry and possibly the first female professor to head a major university, a federal university from northern Nigeria, which is the University of Abuja. Before that, she served as commissioner in her home state of Bauchi from 1985 to 1990, and at the federal level was not just Vice Chancellor, but also a federal minister in the transition government of General Abdulsalami Abubakar, and then was DG or Director General of the National Board for Technology Incubation, NBTI. This is a brief bio. Prof, you tell us the rest, beginning with your early education.
I was born in Azari, that is Katagum Emirate, which is in Bauchi State now. And I was born in 1951. And it was a very good childhood that I had in Azari. My father then was a head of department in the Native Authority who valued education very much. And I went to school, primary school. It was called Junior Primary School, Azari, in 1956. And from there, the end was the junior primary school for girls. Luckily for us, they opened a senior primary school boarding in Bauchi, according to the old system of education. That's it. So I moved to Bauchi. I passed an interview. I passed a test also, written test, to be in senior primary school in Bauchi. And that was a 3-year course. And I finished class 7 then in Bauchi. It was class 4 in Azari and 7 in Bauchi. From there, we sat for the common entrance examination. Well, I was, okay, I succeeded, I could say. Somebody else may probably say it, whether how well it was done or not, but at least I passed. And I was allocated admission, or given admission for Queen Elizabeth School, Ilorin.
Ilorin?
Ilorin.
All the way from Bauchi?
Yes, because as a matter of fact, Ilorin is the first female secondary school in northern Nigeria for females. And the second one came in 1962 in Kano, just about the time I was moving to Maiduguri.
So Ilorin was the first?
It was the first.
Was the first.
It was opened by Queen Elizabeth.
Tell us about that journey. Was there no resistance from your family, your parents, to move on your own from?
My dad was very much keen. And my mother's, that is my mother and stepmother, of course, the two of them. Some of them, they were not quite keen, but there was not much they can do because my father had decided that that was the best for me.
Yes.
So they have to agree. Right. So they did. And I moved to Ilorin.
But how was the experience for you?
It was not easy.
How was the journey to Ilorin?
The journey, do you know that I slept in Mina?
To go to Ilorin?
I slept in Mina railway station because when we came to Kano, we were told that the school, Ilorin, the school will open on Sunday, not knowing that opening on Sunday is opening just to receive students. So my dad thought that classes were going to start. So he rushed me. He said, okay, there was no train from Kano to Ilorin, going to Lagos, passing through Ilorin that day. So he said, okay, but what of local train? They said there's a local train going to Kaduna. And from Kaduna, I can join the Port Harcourt Lagos train in Kaduna. So my dad put me on the train, and there was somebody from my hometown that was going to Kaduna for a course, an elderly person, a colleague in the Native Authority.
Yes.
So he said, okay, let them take care of me and change my train for me in Kaduna. When we got to Kaduna, the struggle of coming out of the train, the train that I was supposed to join arrived and passed because it spent only 15 minutes in Kaduna.
Mm.
So I couldn't get the train. So the man said that we travel with. He too, he was coming to a strange place, but with his wife, of course.
Mm.
But he didn't know where he was going to take me to. He said, okay, but they said there is a local train going to Mina.
Mm.
So they could put me on that train.
Wow.
Not knowing that even when I get to Mina, there will not be any train to Lagos.
Mm.
It would have to be the following day.
Mm.
And that following day was the Plateau, Jos, Lagos train.
Mm.
So I went to Mina. So I had to spend the night in Mina. It was the following day in the evening that the train came from Jos. And luckily for me, there was one worried lady with her son in the railway station. And they took care of me. She even told her son to please put my luggage for me in the train. They assisted me. So I went on. So that experience, it was not easy for me, honestly, sincerely.
But you made it to Ilori?
I made it to Ilori. And my experience also, which I will never forget, is when I got on the train, I sat near an elderly man. When I put my head on the elderly man, I slept all through. So when I heard jabba, 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 I just got up. Knowing that thinking that I was near Ilorin.
Yes.
So when I got up, the man looked at me. He said, are you not going to Ilorin? I said, yes. He said, sit down. The journey is still far. You have to wait. Come and sit down. And the man even contacted some of my colleagues that were going to Ilorin. He saw some ladies, girls.
On the train?
On the train, in that same coach. So he told them that he has somebody who, please let them assist her. I was sitting next to him and slept all through on his back. And the man was so nice. So when we got to Ilorin, they just came over to him and said, why is that your daughter? He said, here she is. So they took my luggage. When we landed at the railway station, they were asking me, why is that your dad? I said, he's not my dad. He just helped me. He said, oh, what a nice man.
So how was school in Ilori?
The school.
How did it go, your stay in Ilori?
My stay? Well, very interesting. Because one good thing that I liked about being in Ilorin is I had no problem with maths.
Mathematics?
Because that was my best subject. And also, I like sciences.
Science?
But I had a bit of problem with English, I must say.
Yes.
But at least, and the principal even tried to coach me through another teacher so that I would be able to catch up. But maths was my real experience. It was good, my good experience. I was good in maths. I was good in physics, but unfortunately, physics and maths, the teachers were not that good. So, but my chemistry teacher was very good. So I was able to at least comprehend the chemistry much better. My main problem again is the issue of choice of career. That time there was all this craze wanting to be a medical doctor. And wanting to be a medical doctor, I had to do away with some of my maths and take physics, chemistry, biology.
Yes.
Because that is the combination that is allowed.
Did you want to be a doctor yourself?
I wanted to be a doctor. That's what I said that time. But later on, I changed my mind. Already, I had already twisted my course to chemistry, physics, biology instead of maths.
Even though math was your strength?
It was my strength. So when it was A-level, because after ordinary level, that is WASC, we went for A-level. And that A-level...
Still in Ilori? You did your A-level there?
I did my A-level there.
Yeah.
The 3 subjects, that was the maths, physics, chemistry. So when I finished, luckily for me, when I went to Zaria, I had to also do remedial, which I did. But at the same time, I decided, I was getting married that time. So I decided not to do the medicine. I said medicine 5 years. And then with all those other things that come after it, having to go for all this, their training and so on. I said, no, let me do something less. So I decided to go for science.
Yes. So you went to ABU to do BSc chemistry?
Yes, BSc. It was not even chemistry I did, it was biochemistry.
Biochemistry.
But it was in chemistry department. But at the final year, we sort of chose biochemistry based on the combination of the courses.
You say you got married as you entered ABU to do your degree. But also your bio indicated that after ABU, you went to England, you did a master's and a PhD. How was you? Were you able to combine marriage with this long sojourn abroad also?
Well, as a matter of fact, I had only a child, and I did my NYSC in Kano. And well, I had to move to Maiduguri because by then my husband in Kano was not employed. And at the same time, I was also looking for a job. But you know, the condition was such that if your husband does not go out looking for a job for you, or a man like a brother or a father, it's not easy for a young lady to be going looking for job herself.
Right.
So because of that difficulty, I decided to move to Maiduguri, where my uncle lived. I have an uncle on the father's side. So he was the one that assisted me. And I got a job at North East College of Arts and Science.
To teach.
That's what became the university.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
it became University of Maiduguri.
Right.
And then by being University of Maiduguri, also we were advised to go on all this postgraduate training because it's needed for the university. So, and it was even University of Maiduguri that sponsored us
To go for masters.
masters and to go for PhD.
Yes. So how did you combine that with family, child, husband?
Well,
Going
somehow,
to England
because of the condition, I think the marriage did not work.
Okay.
So that was the problem. But all the same, all along, we kept in touch.
What of the child?
The child is with me up till now. Up
Right.
till today, he's with me.
Okay. Tell me about your experience in England.
My experience in England.
Young woman from Borno, you are working in Borno, suddenly finding yourself in cold England.
Well, yes, it's true. It's not easy. But, you know, with all the facilities that they have there, I mean the warm clothing and the heating facilities, it was quite okay. One is at least happy to be there. You know, there is no problem about the temperature or the climate. But the only problem is the issue of sometimes, you know, one gets disregarded because one is a black. All that discrimination. Did
you experience that?
Well, there is a bit of it, much of it, in fact, because I knew when I went for my master's, I heard from the grapevine I was the best student, but I was not given the prize.
In the university?
Somebody else
when you
got
finished
the prize.
the master's?
Somebody else got the prize. So I know about that.
Yes.
And then for my PhD, I knew I was also coming up as one of the best students, if not the best. And my supervisor even wanted me to go and present a paper at the International Conference of Chemists. But somehow, because of all this discrimination, somebody objected to it, and they put somebody of their own, and I didn't go to do it, despite the fact that my supervisor and my external examiner, they all considered me as a genius for what I did.
So you did your master's and PhD
in
the same university?
Loughborough University. But I came back
Loughborough University?
Loughborough University of Technology.
Right.
But I came back to University of Maiduguri to teach for 2 years before I went back. In between.
Was your stay in England, was it lonely? Did you cope socially? Did you cope, you know, all those years?
No, I didn't mind, because even when I was in Maiduguri, I was lonely. Because despite the fact that I left my husband behind
in Kano,
I didn't really, you know, move around or have any interest in anything else. And at the same time, to be frank with you, it is not easy for a young lady of that age to befriend anybody, even the females. Because the females, it is not likely I get somebody of my type.
How long did it take you? When did you finish your PhD?
I finished in 1984.
It looks like after PhD, you didn't stay long in the university. Suddenly you became commissioner.
Yes.
In 1985. How did that come about?
It was Chris Garba that insisted in Bauchi when he became a commissioner.
You are back in the University of Maiduguri then?
Yes, I was back.
As a lecturer?
Lecturer. I was lecturer one then.
Lecturer one. So how did the someone come about? How did you know you are there?
Well, he must have heard. Because I never came to Bauchi to see him or to see anybody. I was in Maiduguri throughout. But somehow, you know, I got the rumor that we are going to be appointed commissioner. But I knew that there was a lot of resistance because I was not living in Bauchi. But Chris Garba insisted that a PhD in science from Bauchi State, I must work with her. So that's how he brought me to Bauchi. And I was in Bauchi. Luckily for me, I was able to serve for 5 years.
Different ministries?
Different ministries. I served in Ministry of Information, Information, Social Development, Social Welfare, they call it that time, and Culture. And even Y was under me. And after a year, I was posted to Ministry of Education. I was in education for a year and a half, after which I was posted to Commerce, Industries and Tourism.
So how was it? You are a young woman then, and like you said, not actually familiar with the Bauchi environment. How did you cope as commissioner? The social pressure on you. What can you remember about that period? It's almost 40 years ago.
Well, there was nothing like that. The only thing is that, at that age, one is really determined to do the best and to be fair. So what I try to do is to be fair to everybody, and at the same time to put in my best in whatever I do, regardless.
Yes.
I was not looking at religion, I was not looking at any culture, I was not looking at any ethnicity, just to work. But obviously, when I see any imbalance somewhere, I try to do as much as possible to put it right.
Yeah, but there is this tendency to look at young women in government, society, the traditional people, the elders, the ulama, as if she is not somebody who is attuned with the culture. Did you face that kind of?
Because the fact that one has contained oneself within the cultural expectations. I was there, but nobody could pinpoint at me and say I was doing anything outside the ordinary. I was an ordinary, traditional woman of Bauchi State. That's how I lived. I lived.
Even though you are not married?
I was not married, but I kept myself, honestly, sincerely. I'm sure I have a lot of witness to that. So that was, I think that was my credit, really. That's what really kept me going.
Yes.
Because I tried as much as possible to really keep to myself and try to be as much as possible. That morality aspect, I try to I try to uphold it and make sure that I do not play with my life.
Yeah. Did you miss chemistry? Now you are almost in a political office.
Well, to a certain extent, I did, but not much. Because I very much believe that if one has the basic education, one can apply it to do whatever one is called upon to do. Yes, I think that is very important. Because if I'm not teaching chemistry is not the only thing that one can apply his knowledge. PhD is a knowledge that you can apply to do a lot of things. Because I very much believe that when I came, I was appointed first Commissioner for Information.
Exactly.
I was wondering how it was going to be for me. But honestly, sincerely, it's the ministry I enjoyed most, to be frank with you.
Information.
Because I like the journalists, the way they cooperated with me, the way they assisted me to succeed. I was very happy. For example, I can always recall that Yaya Abubakar.
Famous,
he was my mentor. He was my mentor. He taught me a lot of things. He guided me on what to do.
What happened when you finished your tenure as commissioner, 5 years in 1990? Did you want to go back to University of Maiduguri, or you looked? You moved towards Abuja, I think.
But I reported back in Maiduguri.
Okay.
I did. But then I remember that with a new university in Abuja, I was also keen on coming to Abuja.
Why Abuja?
Because Abuja is a new federal capital.
Yes.
It's a
but
new
it was
federal
then
capital.
just a small university. It wasn't,
yes, but still, we are the ones that built it up. All the same.
Was Isa Mohammed then the Vice
Yes,
Chancellor?
he was. He was the one that brought me. I remained, senior lecturer for quite some time. About 6 years before I became associate professor. After which I became a professor.
You were then a lecturer in the university, maybe an associate professor, and then suddenly you became a minister, even though for a year under Abdulsalami.
So the credit goes to his wife.
I see. The justice.
Honorable Fati Abubakar. Because we were mates in the secondary school. Probably, and she wanted to work with me. Yes. And she wanted to work with me.
Yes.
And she knew that quite a number of times there was proposals, to appoint me as a minister or to give me a federal appointment, which never worked. So she sympathized with that and said, no, she has to be a minister. So, and at the same time, I became a minister and posted to Women Affairs, working with her.
So how was the experience of being minister? It's a short one.
It was a short one, but very interesting. It was very interesting because we did quite a lot that time, many ideas, because I have people, directors that were working with me that were quite good. People like Safia Mohammed and Amina Lawal. That time, that was their name that time. So they worked with me, and we were able to at least put a number of things in place. We were able to initiate the policy on women, which became gender policy, of course, now. And then the issue of child development was also an issue that we really did. I knew we did quite a bit on the disabled, because it was social development as well.
So it's women and social
development,
yes.
And something for the elderly. We did quite a bit, but because it's only 8 months.
So after minister, I don't know whether you consider this the high point of your career. You became the Vice Chancellor
Yes.
of the University of Abuja. How did that happen, really?
Well, there was an advert which I applied. Though, you know, there was a lot of resistance that time. According to them, because I have not qualified as a professor for the period. So because of that, but at the same time, for my performance at the interview, because I knew I scored very little because of my academic position, that is being a professor for a certain period of time and so on. But I did well in the interview, and because I council did everything, and I became third. I was in the third position, but all the same, I was given that appointment because they saw that being a lady.
Who gave you the appointment?
It was the government then, Abdulsalam.
Yes,
because the proposal is normally sent to him
so
through the minister.
Towards the end.
Yes, it has to go to him that time.
Exactly.
According to the system that time, it has to go through the minister to the president or head of state.
So did you have any challenges as Vice Chancellor?
Well, as a matter of fact, it was a university with a lot of problems. Because when Professor Isa Mohammed left, there was problem. Because of that, you know, it is very easy to amend. It's not easy to create something new and do something fantastic, but when there is fault, it's easy to correct. So I was able to correct most of the problems. I mean the faults. For example, the committee system that was not in place, and some of the rights of lecturers and students and so on and so forth. We have all instituted what was supposed to be in the institution that were not were neglected, more or less. So we are able to do that, and at the same time, I even thought that probably where we were was a small place. It was not. It was secondary school or even primary school of the FCT we were occupying, which we were developing. So despite the fact that Isa had started working with the permanent site, I was the one that pushed and got the permanent site, TDB. For the university to start to do something about the development, master plan and so on.
Was funding a challenge?
Of course. That has always been the challenge. It was a challenge. It was a challenge, but for the little that we had, we made sure that we expanded it very well. To the extent that at least one will be happy to say that all this while, you know, there is no report of anything that was done that was not proper in the university, at least during my tenure.
Your tenure was 5 years.
5 years.
Yes. What do you think were the highlights of that tenure? What are the things?
Well, the highlights is the academic activities were put in place properly, and at the same time we have gotten the permanent site, which we started development. That was very key, and at the same time we maintained a lot of peace, because before there was no peace, but we maintained a lot of peace. Throughout my tenure, I think we didn't have any serious disruption. No, not at all. Because the only time that we had the students crying and they came, it was for water. And we supplied the water, that was the end. We never had any problem. It was really a very
But was administration
smooth.
a challenge for you? Or was
No,
your
not
tenure
at
as
all.
commissioner, as minister has
No,
prepared you?
probably that has prepared me.
Mm.
That is what prepared me really. And I believe in obeying the rules and the laws and the guidelines. Once you follow the guidelines and you obey the rules, you wouldn't have any problem with and involving. The university system is a system that encourages involving others, community work. So I like that because I was using the academic staff who are well prepared for some of those things, to do some of the jobs for me. So I brought them over and we worked together and we succeeded.
Now, it's also remarkable that immediately you finish as VC, you are appointed the DG of this National Board for Technology Incubation?
Yes, incubation.
How did that come about? I mean, normally...
I applied.
Yeah, okay,
I saw the
again.
advert. I saw the advert in the paper.
You knew your tenure was finishing?
It had finished that time.
Yes,
I was even on sabbatical.
Okay.
So I applied. And that time it was Dr. Abdullahi Aliyu that was the permanent secretary.
Okay.
So
Under
he said,
Obasanjo.
yes. So he said, okay, are you keen? I said, yes. Okay, apply. I applied and I sat for interview. And according to what I was told, I was the best for the interview. So I was given that appointment.
What did the job entail?
Well, it's just coordinating the activities of incubation. And essentially what it is supposed to do is to prepare, innovation and R&D outputs for
research and development.
Yes, that is it. For businesses that will generate wealth and jobs. That is the essence. So what we do, we incubate in the centers. In those centers, they come with their own innovation, some of them. If there is no innovation, probably R&D output from somewhere that needs to be translated into business. So we do the nurturing. We do everything that is needed in order to qualify that candidate for that position and at the same time to succeed in creating a business. So that's what they used to do in the centers, creating businesses. But at the same time, when I became the DG, I decided to say we can move out and also incubate those that are in the larger society. And at the same time introduce virtual incubation, whereby now that we have all this computer and so on, we can communicate with all our tenants outside to incubate. So they register with us for that incubation. So that was the expansion that we were able to bring about. And at the same time, there were no quality control laboratories. And the fact that I'm a chemist, I saw that that is very essential. So we established laboratory, we established laboratories for this quality assurances and quality control. And at the same time, we also establish workshops whereby we provide many of the things that are needed for the essential engineering that is needed for a lot of the fabrication and some of the processes in the centers. I did that. We did for quite a number of centers, but unfortunately, because of lack of funding, we could not extend it to every place. But I'm sure now something is happening. They are adding a bit. And I also tried to establish all the centers. I mean the centers in all the states. I established before.
So every state has an incubation center now.
They have an incubation center now. And it was our effort because we thought that those that do not have ought to have. Because they were only in few places. They were in, I think they started with 3. They became 9. They became 15. And before I left, they are more than 30. And even the remainder were in the process. But now they have been established. So every state of the Federation has a technology incubation center.
Yes, we will take a break at this point in our conversation with Professor Gambo Laraba Abdullahi. We've reached a point where, as the DG of the National Board of Technology Incubation, you've heard how these incubation centers have spread all over the country. We will continue with the conversation after this short break. The second segment of our conversation with Professor Gambo Laraba Abdullahi, Professor of Chemistry and former Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja, and also former Federal Minister of Women and Social Development. We're talking about the National Board of Technology Incubation, which, as you said, has now spread to all the incubation centers in all the states of the Federation. Now, why is it, despite all this investment and centers for technology and research and development, why is Nigeria still backward in terms of innovation, in terms of invention, in terms of taking care of our own technological needs?
Well, thank you very much. That is really a very important area that requires a lot of discussion by all, in fact, because we have seen, we have a lot of institutions in place and many policies and guidelines, but still, those ones are not carried through for the realization of our goals or the achievement of the objectives they were established for, because of, number one, funding. Well, unfortunately for us, by the time we have ideas on what we want to do, we don't seem to realize the involvement, what is needed. In many things that we do, we don't do the mathematics very well. Because before you establish institutions, the most important thing is to know how to get it to work and to sustain it. But we don't think of that. All we think at any point in time is how can we call it, even if it is by name, that it is there, for political reasons or some other reasons. But unfortunately, we don't follow through to make sure that it works. This is our own problem. Because even in the universities, we have many research outputs. But you see, even the direction of the researches do not lead to researches that will lead to economic development for wealth and jobs. And at the same time, we don't even direct it. There isn't proper linkage. Linkage with industries, linkage with even small businesses, we don't have. So that is the problem. And I think, you see, in our own case, sometimes we tend to think big. But honestly, sincerely, we are supposed to start thinking small. We have small businesses, very tiny, some of them non-formal. Those are the ones that we have to encourage, because those are the ones that ought to develop to become the big ones. When you think of creating a very big one, there's a lot of problem. It's not easy to create a big business. And most of the time, even for those that attempt in our country, they bring outsiders to assist. And outsiders have their own interest. Sometimes we engage in doing something. We say it's fantastic. It's a big business for us. Our people will have job. But probably the job that our people are going to have is laborer job. Most of the things, the senior top positions, are probably by outsiders. And at the same time also, the products is for the benefit of outsiders, because we are just matter of packaging and selling. Not the initiative. It's not our own innovation that is being used. So we have that problem. And honestly, sincerely, there is need for our government to think of how to go about getting our universities, number one, to produce R&Ds that are relevant to our economic development or socio-economic development, because it can be in all areas of our endeavors. R&D is very essential. For those that benefit, they benefit from R&D.
Yeah, but Prof, if we have failed all these years with all the top professors and universities proliferating, if we have failed to do that, isn't there a more fundamental problem than government doing more, or even preaching to the universities to be more relevant to the economy?
Well, more, you mean, I mean the people themselves, they have to participate.
I'm thinking perhaps our problem is that we rely on government to do these things, rather than in some places it is the private sector that funds research and development, so that, and it goes into the manufacturing.
You know, but you have to develop the private sector. I tell you,
we do have the private
no,
sector.
the private sector. The one I'm telling you,
Yes.
the most important private sector that is sustaining Nigeria is the non-formal.
The small one.
The small one,
Yes.
non-formal.
Yes.
The real formal big private sectors, they are not many. They are not many, and many of them, they have linkages abroad.
Yes.
So this is our problem. So that is what we are saying, that let us build. We have to start somewhere. You know, we missed the road a long time ago.
Yes.
After colonization. I knew in the villages before, you have people with their occupations. The father with his children, they will engage in all that occupation. Besides farming, there are a lot of things, skills. And most of the homes, when you go, or the community, what they use is what the people produce. So those are the kind of things that we ought to have developed. But unfortunately for us, we started importing, replacing those things that we produce for our own use, which is wrong. Right from the word go, that's when we miss road. When we started buying all those imported things since after colonization. And then we abandoned our traditional things. We did not develop them. We just learned to use all these foreign ones. And these foreign ones is not built on our knowledge.
Why have professors like you not gone into the economy, into producing things, into manufacturing, into putting your ideas into practical effect?
Yes, that one, there is need for encouragement by the government, honestly. Whether you like it or not, it's government that will set the pace. Even the private sector we are talking about, government has to play a role to make sure that the private sector is developed. When the private sector gets developed, that is when we shall rely on private sector to do certain things for us.
But I'm saying that in some places, professors or intelligent people, people with ideas and training will patent some things, will develop some things, and make and patent them, and then link up with the private sector and produce them and go into the market. Why don't you have that in Nigeria?
We don't have, because as I told you, the private sector is not that type. And the more advanced ones, many of them, they rely on innovations outside the country, whether we like it or not. They don't normally depend on the universities. Whether the universities are doing it well or not, we ought to at least encourage them and push them to be able to do something that is needed by the industries or the companies in our country. Research is a very expensive venture. Any government that is serious or anybody that is serious for research, even if it is in the industry, they have to invest a lot of money. Many of the industries that are succeeding in the foreign land, for example, their research is very important.
Their R&D budgets.
Very big. But in our own case, it's not so. It's not so. For example, you can imagine, somebody was complaining that TED fund was given 5 million for R&D, a grant. What will 5 million naira do in research, if it is real research?
They give professors 5 million to do research.
To do research. That allocation. That is even now. Before, when I was there, probably it was in thousands that they were given, not in millions. And that money was not really enough to do something very tangible.
After all these big jobs, you went back to the university. What were you doing?
Well, I was a director of remedial and general studies, but at the same time, I was interested in teaching, more especially in my field of study. I very much believe that there was that vacancy and it was needed, so I went back. I went back to the university because at the same time, that's the best place to be. When you finish all those serving and so on, when you are in the university, you are remembered because you are in the university. They can always recall. But if you decide not to be in the university, one is forgotten.
Yes.
What happened?
So you remained in the university?
I remained in the university.
But you recently retired,
I retired.
Right?
I retired. I retired after 70 years.
But why retire? Why can't you? I know professors who continue on contract and other things into their 90s.
No, I think after 70, I think one has been exhausted enough. It's better to sit and think of light things to do, because at that age, one needs to take it lightly, not to be too involved. Because you see, the problem is, me, I very much believe that up to a certain point, one needs to really think of taking care of oneself. And not just job, right to the grave. It's not.
So what does taking care of ourselves mean? Is it because one aspect of taking care of yourself is to continue making a living?
Of course.
So some people need the income. That's why they continue working.
But we have income. We have a pension. There is pension.
Is it enough?
Okay. That's something to manage with. But no, but one can engage in consultancy. One can have some ideas of some things one can do in life.
So how do you yourself take care of those things after retirement? What do you do?
In my own case, I do some consultancy. I serve as committees, and I do get allowances for it. And at the same time, I do farming.
Farming?
Farming.
Where?
I have an integrated farm at home.
Where is that?
It's at Azari.
Azari.
But Itas is the place. That's my home village.
Itas. But how could you do farming in Azari while you're in Abuja?
No, I do go. And I have some people that are taking care.
Is it working? Because the experience of people who stay away from the farm hasn't been good.
Of course. It failed at one stage. And I had to at least suspend activity. But I very much believe that still, that is the major one, integrated farming that I wanted to do. Whereby, you have all sorts of things that are feeding onto themselves. You have the fish, you have the chicken, you have the grains, you have the cattle, and you have all seedlings and so on. All of them interrelated.
Yes. But the number one...
That is the one that...
The number one is the farmer himself in this integration. And you don't seem to be there.
And at the same time, that one is the one that failed. But I do from here monitor. And at the same time, my son has created a farm here.
In Abuja here?
Smart farm. He's doing a lot of things.
You work together with him?
Sometimes I work together with him, and at the same time...
In Abuja here?
And at the same time, he has taught me how to remotely control farms.
As an analytical chemist, have you been able to do one or two things in private business with your expertise?
Private? No.
Set up something, a factory, or create some...
No, not at all. Not at all. Because, anytime I think of doing something like that, I remember I need the capital. And the capital is...
You don't think it's possible to start small and grow it?
Well, it's not easy. As a matter of fact, it's not easy. I have always... When you think of the total machinery that is needed, it's not something that is small. You can start a small farm, but it's not easy to start an industry like that in a small scale. Even the small scale is a large investment.
Why do you prefer to live in Abuja, not in Bauchi?
Well, because I have been working on committees and also as a consultant in many of the places. Because I very much believe that in Abuja you have the advantage of being
accessible.
And at the same time, you don't need to travel far. And at the same time, if you have your accommodation in Abuja, you don't need to go and pay for hotel and so on and so forth. So that was the reason why I'm still in Abuja.
But I notice you are also a member of the Bauchi Elders Forum.
I was.
You were?
I was.
You have left?
No, not left, but it is no longer functioning.
I see.
That was during the time of Ahmed Muazu. We were inaugurated. And then it continued during the time of
You were the vice chairman?
No,
okay.
I was a member.
Okay, you're a member.
Then it was the time of Isa Yuguda.
The governors don't ask elders like you who have served as commissioners 40 years ago in Bauchi are you advised about how to develop things?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have not received any invitation. And at the same time, I don't normally like pushing myself, offering myself to do something that one is not invited for. Because many of the people in position, they prefer to think for themselves and to know what to do themselves. They don't expect anybody to come and tell them what to do.
What of that at the federal level? Is the government still calling on you sometimes to make inputs?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. But I very much believe that probably, I expect that probably we may be able to assist the government as a chairman of committees or boards or something of that sort.
You expect that?
We are expecting that to happen.
Yes.
If at all it comes, I will welcome it. But at the same time, as I told you, I'm not ready for any full-time job.
Yeah. So what do you do with your time now? You say you prefer to do light things. What are those light things?
I do a lot of reading. I read a lot. My library is here. I do a lot, and I do a lot of manipulations of things, something that I very much believe that I ought to do something about on.
Chemistry or?
Part of it is chemistry, and some of it is general knowledge. Some of it is even something to do with economic development, especially. I like that. I like to think about, what we were before and where we are heading to now. I always try to see, what we can do to really improve the situation, more especially the issue of insecurity. Insecurity. And the issue of this unemployment for the youth. Unemployment. And, well, I tried as much as possible to also sort of campaign in my own little way to people not to produce too many children. Because we very much believe that it's time to control. Whenever I'm home, that's what I try to at least lighten on.
Do you do it in a structure like the Planned Parenthood or things like that? Or
No, I just do it.
Private?
For those that are close to me, I do it. But I will plan to start something like that.
Like an NGO?
Because now I'm no longer serving in many of the committees that I used to serve. I have a few, but I think it's a time now that I will think of doing something like that on my own. NGO, I don't so much like the work of NGO. Because many of them, I don't believe they have very good intentions. Many of them are just doing it for the money.
But you can do it for social impact.
Well, but it has already made that name. So this is my problem. It has already made that name. And that's why I don't like to be associated with NGO things for money or no. But if I have money, I will do whatever I can do myself.
Why do you think women having or families having more children, beside the obvious outlay of taking care of them? Why do you think it's a problem in our society? People will say God decides how many children you have, so why worry?
No, but you see, when you look at it again, when in the past, families, there is a natural control. That natural control of number is a disease. Many children were dying. So people give birth to many in anticipation that, some will survive, not all.
Yes.
But then, in the wisdom of God, He brought medicine, the knowledge of medicine to us. And that knowledge of medicine expanded to the extent that we have eliminated a lot of the diseases that were killing our children. So if we have accepted that, and then as a result, it is becoming a problem. We have children that we cannot take care of. So why can't women go and look for all these things that will control the number of children that they can have? I think there is nothing wrong with it. The God that gave medicine, we did not reject medicine. So we should not reject this one. Because I very much believe that. Because a case of somebody not being able to cater for one child, having 16, for example, and then thinking of pushing the children to go and look for money and not knowing what they are doing. That is the root cause of many of the problems that we have today. We have people of strength, young ones, youths that don't have jobs. They don't have somebody to take care of them at home. So they don't have any regards for anybody. So they go out looking for money. And they can take to anything to earn money, no matter what it is.
Yeah. But there are people who say this is coming from somebody with only one child, right? So maybe your view is influenced by your own personal circumstances.
not that, sir. It's not that. It's not. But at least we know. We have to take care of all that we have, honestly. If we have many children, I'm not saying that we must not have. Whoever that can take care of the children can do so. But many that produce cannot take care of them.
How many children would you have loved to have yourself? Were you happy just to have one, or is just circumstances?
Well, if it had come, I have like 3, 4.
Could have been.
But I have only one.
What?
But I have many brothers and sisters that I take care of.
Of course.
Nieces and nephews.
So what do you do privately or for pleasure? I notice you travel to many countries. Is traveling one of your hobbies? Do you travel still?
I don't travel much. Because one thing, I don't travel because when I used to go to, for example, UK, America, or any of those developed nations, I was going there in order to learn something. But now on my own, for my own reason to go there, I feel very much that I don't belong there. Because I know nobody is regarding a black man in those white countries as anybody. One is just wasting one's time. Once you are black, you are nobody. So because of that, I don't even bother. Because when I go, I don't like to be in a place where people disregard me because of my color. I have been to Hajj a number of times, 3 times. I went for Umrah. But I don't believe that if I have the money to be going to Hajj, I just continue going, no. Because I have many relations that need assistance. So you see, those are the areas that we should be putting our effort to do, to assist those that need us, not to be spending money going to places.
So traveling is over for you?
No, I don't so much. And sometimes, we used to go traveling for shopping, to buy 1 or 2 things that we need. They are all in Nigeria now. The things are in Nigeria. You don't need to go anywhere to buy.
So how do you spend your typical day?
My typical day? Well, I do a lot of resting. First of all, I need to have my sleep, enough sleep. And then when I wake up, I get ready, I do some reading. Well, sometimes I read my Quran as well. And then from there on, I come down and I meet my lessons. Sometimes I do some walking around. But every morning, I do exercise. I have a gym in my upstairs where I go. I do my exercise. So during that exercise, I very much believe that I don't need to go out running because of the security even.
Of course.
There is insecurity. So that is what I do, and I do a lot of reading. And at the same time, I make contacts. WhatsApp is there, and this one is there, this network, Safari, and so on and so forth. So I do a lot of that.
What of diet? Are you
yes, I'm on, of course. Well, I'm pre-diabetic, not quite diabetic. So I'm very careful with my diet. I don't eat a lot of starchy food. And at the same time, well, of course, sugar is off. I don't take anything that has sugar. When I really need something sweet, I use the sweetener, but not always. That's it. And I always try to read as much as possible to see what is best for one, keep healthy, more especially away from all these common diseases that kill people, diabetes, hypertension, and so on and so forth. So I do a lot of that. And for example, of recent, I just learned that wheat is not good again for diabetes.
I saw that too.
So you see this kind of thing.
Are you still in touch with old friends from
yes.
Queen's College?
Yes, yes. Some of them have died, but many of them, some of them are going for treatment here and there. So looking for assistance, and I assist as much as possible wherever I can. But I do get in touch with them, at least for those that I can get in touch with, because there are those that one cannot trace where they are.
But are you still in touch with people who you visit and you socialize with them? Or
we socialize, they visit, they visit, we visit. For example, I have my best friend here in Kefi, General Abdulsalami Abubakar. And I have one Kilishari in Katsina. Well, I have many of them. Even as I said, the first lady of Abdulsalam time is my friend.
It's just his Fatia.
So there are many of them like that I communicate with. And I'm her member of board of trustee, what she's doing, rapper.
Oh, the rapper. Yes.
I'm a member of
Is
her
it
board.
active, the rapper?
It's active. It's
It's
active.
active.
It's active.
You meet and all that?
It's active.
Mm.
Saudat Madi is the
Yes.
executive secretary.
Yes. Thank you very much, Prof, for
I
letting
wish-
us into your life.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank
And thank you,
very
viewers, for staying with us in this conversation with Professor Gambo Laraba Abdullahi. And until we meet you in another episode of Reminiscences, thank you and goodbye.